Okay, so with, so just make sure you're speaking like somewhat loudly just because the speaker's not as good. But, okay, so go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you are, and what you're doing there.
Yeah, so my name is Mary Satchwell. I am a sophomore at Moody Bible Institute in Chicago, Illinois. I am studying human services with an emphasis in ministry to victims of sexual exploitation.
So really with Project Passion, what we're focusing on, as I've told you before, is just passion and what makes you passionate about something. So tell us a little bit about how you kind of got started in that route, so that you got to this point of making it your actual major.
Yeah, so from a young age, I always knew I wanted to work with women in some way, and I've always been really passionate about empowering women and equipping women to live an independent and well-rounded lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And when I was 17, I found out about the issue of human trafficking and sexual exploitation, and I just honestly couldn't get away from it. I kept coming back to it and doing tons of research and finding out so much information, and also finding out that no one was doing anything about the issue.
Yeah.
It was really just on my heart to do something about it. And at that age, at 17, I was overwhelmed by the problem, and I felt like I'm just one person. What can I do? And I'm sure everyone feels that way at some point in life. Mm-hmm. But I just became really motivated, like one person honestly can bring a lot of change. And if you are willing to fight a good fight, other people will see you and follow your example.
Right.
So yeah, I kind of just decided then that I wanted to dedicate my life to this cause, and just really realizing that this life is about more than just me, and that I can make a difference, and this is how I want to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So one thing about this project is, one thing that's hard is that some people struggle to identify something that they're passionate about. So how did you even find out about this issue? Because it's not really like it's something that we see every day in our community. It's definitely more of a hidden issue in a lot of ways. So how did you come across this?
Yeah, so one day I was in English class, and a student gave a speech on slavery, and they talked about the slave trade in the U.S. In the 17 and 1800s. And at the end of their speech, they said, yeah, so then the amendment was passed, slavery was over, end of story, there's no more slavery on the earth. Goodbye, and that just didn't really sit well with me. And that day I remember going home and thinking, I feel like I've heard somewhere someone said that slavery's not over, but I don't really know what that means. I don't really know what slavery looks like today. I'm not sure if they were right. So I honestly just started researching it and looked up modern day slavery, and I came across human trafficking, and realized that a lot of people around the world today are still being exploited for labor or child marriage, or they're being exploited sexually in brothels or in the filming of pornography and those things. So honestly, just a lot of independent research. And then finding resources like books and podcasts and things like that talked about it. So yeah, sadly, I never heard about it in school. I never heard about it from anyone, really. I kind of had to find it on my own. And my hope is that one day it is talked about in school and a lot more people are aware.
Right, and that's kind of where you see yourself heading, right, with more so educating people on issues like this?
Definitely, yeah. My passion is definitely for educating and equipping the community to fight the issue. I have a lot of friends here who are really passionate about working with survivors and counseling them and equipping them to live a normal life again and enter back into society, and that's amazing, and I love that, and their heart is so huge for them. But my passion is definitely more for fighting the demand side and raising awareness for the dangers of pornography and prostitution and all of the above in order to equip the community to fight the issue, because it's one of those things that until everyone is fighting against it, it's not going to end. So yeah, education is definitely the route I see myself going.
Right. So you mentioned earlier that at 17, when you were introduced to this issue, which then turned into a passion, that you felt really overwhelmed. And I feel that way about a lot of things. And I think that it's kind of human nature to, when we feel that sense of being overwhelmed, we kind of shut down because we don't know what to do, and so we don't do anything. So what's your advice to someone who maybe is coming across something that makes them feel, passionate, but they also feel overwhelmed, and their response is to kind of shut down?
Yeah, I think a lot of times as young people, we feel like the world is looking down on us just because we are young, and sometimes we get accused of being too ambitious, but I just don't think that's true. I think that I have so much hope in our generation, and I see a lot of people being passionate about a lot of things that seem larger than them, and they are. But I see a generation of people rising up to the occasion and not backing down just because they're afraid. And I would say definitely fear can cause you to do a lot of things. If you find something that makes you passionate, usually you're also afraid of it. Sometimes we're afraid of our passion or of our anger even towards things. But I think you can either use that to drive you to retreat and to just go an easy path, or you can use that and say, I'm not going to let this fear control me. I'm going to do something about this, and I'm going to step up. And it definitely takes a lot of courage and a lot of faith in yourself. But I would just say, just know that you have what it takes. And if that's something that's on your heart, it's there for a reason. And every single person can make a difference. And I believe that we're not put on this earth just to do the easy thing and take the easy route all the time, and that we really do reap what we sow as well. So I would say be bold, step out, find something you're passionate about, even if it scares you, chase after it, because honestly that's the only way you're going to feel fulfilled in life too, is if you're doing what scares you and overcoming those fears and living a life driven by your passions.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And that kind of brings me to another point that, there are so many things to be passionate about, and it's not realistic to be able to fight for and to be, so passionate that we're doing something about everything. We can't do everything. So for people who are listening who maybe can feel your passion and relate somewhat, what is something that kind of everyday people can do to kind of combat this issue while people like you are doing more of the heavy lifting?
Yeah, one huge thing that I've been learning recently is how much labor exploitation there is in the fashion industry, and how many stores, specifically large chain stores like Forever 21, H&M, things like that, actually use sweatshops in the making of their clothes.
Right.
And that's not sexual exploitation, but that is still a different form of exploitation. People working for very low wages and horrible working conditions to make the clothes that we wear every day. And we buy them because they're cheap, but usually they're cheap for a reason. That's one way that I've been really trying to fight this issue on a daily basis, is being conscious of where I'm shopping. And a lot of that comes in other areas too, such as makeup and hair products and things like that, making sure what you're buying is ethical, which also can be overwhelming for some people. But I think it starts with only buying what you need. I used to subscribe to retail therapy. You know this, Paul. I love shopping, and it used to be something that really would calm me down, and if I was stressed, it was just a really fun thing for me. But now I have a different view of, I don't need these things. I don't need to be going and shopping just for the fun of it. I don't need to be spending my money on this. So when I need to shop, a great place to start is thrifting, because thrifting is recycling clothes, and that's a great way to not directly impact the labor slavery that goes into the fashion industry. There's also a ton of organizations that work directly with survivors of sex trafficking, and a lot of these women will make jewelry or clothes or things, and they will sell them for fair wages, which I think is really beautiful to see that come full circle. So there's a lot out there. You do have to do a little bit of research, but that's a way that anyone and everyone can help. And honestly, just thinking more about the choices you're making and why you're making them is a huge step.
Yeah, and that's really cool to hear you say that. I think, and one thing that really I used to think when people would say stuff like that is like, I need to throw away my whole closet and I need to shop at these tiny stores that are going to charge me hundreds of dollars for one thing.
Yeah.
And that's really not as much the case. I think there's an app, I think maybe you introduced it to me, called Good on You, and it allows you to basically search by the brand and just see how ethical they are, and really that'll help you check your conscience for what, do you feel comfortable buying from these certain distributors, or there are other alternatives that the app or dozens of websites and apps I'm sure also will provide you to these kind of consumeristic options if you're trying to go that route. That's a really cool first step.
Yeah, exactly. And a huge part of that too is you don't have to get rid of everything you have because you already bought it.
Yeah.
So use what you have. Love your clothes well, use them until you can't anymore. Donate your clothes to thrift stores, kind of feed that cycle of reusing your clothes. And that's just good for the environment too, not just as an ethically conscious. It's also just really good for the environment. So yeah, thrifting is my favorite way to shop, honestly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So there's really only one kind of question I have left, and it's very similar to the ones we've been talking about, but early on, you mentioned that, this is something that you've decided to dedicate your life to. And one thing that I'm really trying to make a point with in Project Passion is, I'm really excited for the people who are just now discovering a new passion, but I also understand that, passion's you're not always able, or you might not even want to donate or dedicate your life to whatever passion you've identified. So for the people who don't see that as realistic, how do you think we can still motivate people to fight for what they're passionate about, even if it's not what they do, in their daily job?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great organizations out there for all kinds of things. So there's organizations that fight human trafficking, organizations that help people in third world countries get water, all of the above. And a lot of those organizations need financial funding. So I also realize as young people, we think, okay, well, our finances can't help because we have, not very much money in the bank. But that's something in the future to really keep in mind. Donating to organizations, giving them support financially is huge because the donors to those organizations really keep the work going. So that's one huge way, I think. Other ways, there's lots of things you can do. There's multiple organizations that people raise money for through running races. I ran the Chicago Marathon last year. I'm running it again this year for an organization called World Vision, and they bring clean water to people in third world countries. So all I do is run and then advertise that I'm running and tell people what the cause is and ask for support. And last year I was able to raise $700 for this organization, which is amazing. And all I did was run. There's also things like Dressember, which is a really cool organization that I've been so blessed to be a part of the past few years, where all you do is wear a dress or a tie every day of December, and then you raise money for anti-trafficking organizations. And you wear a dress just to symbolize that we're reclaiming the dress as a symbol of power and fighting against these systems that have been keeping women in oppression for years. So there's lots of things like that, different ways where you can participate throughout your life, either by donating financially, raising funds, or even just raising awareness, having conversations with people about the things you're passionate about. If you're still in school, trying to start maybe a human trafficking awareness week, putting up posters, having a Q&A session, writing letters to survivors as encouragement. There's so many different things you can do for whatever it is you're passionate about. I would recommend connecting with organizations, seeing how you can maybe volunteer or go on mission trips, things like that. I think everyone can play a part in fighting so many issues in the world if you just look into it and do the research and figure out how your gifting can help, even if you don't dedicate your entire life to it. So those are just a few of the practical ways I can think of off the top of my head, but I would say look into some organizations that you're passionate about and figure out how your giftings can match and help to partner with them.
Yeah, that's a really big thing. And I always think back to this quote by Theodore Roosevelt, do what you can with what you have where you are. And I think that's really important, especially, you know, in high school. It feels like you can be so helpless at times, but really, I mean, it's a really prime age, and especially in our, you know, in our digital world, there's so much that we can do that doesn't cost us anything except for time. And if it's time well invested, then I say that that's worth it. So that's all the questions I have for you, Mary. Thanks for sitting down and talking to me, and I'll let you know what these guys say.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right. See you later.
Bye.